Everybody, welcome back to 18 Outdoors. Today we're going to talk about topo lines and big bucks. Or big bucks and topo lines. We're going to talk with Mr. Jake Booth. I'm in Georgia right now at his house, and I want you to look at some that's a big old buck right there. And it got a big buck tree. Of course, y'all know me, I've mounted every one of them suckers just about it. Golly. Awesome stickers. But some dadgum great bucks. But he's a big topography hunter and map guy, so we're going to a little bit dark on that video, but big old bucks. But everybody's been talking to me about these topo line stuff and some of the what you look for, and we're going to get Mr. Booth to talk about some of the stuff he does. Cause he's got, everywhere he hunts is pretty rugged looking hills and mountain stuff. But some daggum good bucks. Here's Mr. Booth right here.
Hey.
Are you ready to set up and talk?
I'm ready.
Again, we're going to get into this. This guy lives in Rising Fawn, Georgia. Now, if you can see that, look out there at the mountains. It's a very beautiful place to live.
A little foggy with the rain.
A little foggy, but yeah, that's part of the cool part of the scenery. Well, we're going to get set up and get talking with him about this topo stuff and how he gets everything planned out, because you're already planning for the year, right? So he does some out-of-state stuff too. So let's get set up and see what we can do.
I'm just gonna follow your lead, or how you wanna? Okay.
However you wanna do it. You're the professional.
No, you're professional. I ain't had a YouTube channel for. It ain't recording now, is it?
Oh yeah, it's recording.
I gotta take that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just gonna follow your lead and talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Hey everybody, I'm sitting here with Jake. He's already getting nervous. But hey, I've known you for messing back and forth for, I guess, a couple years, right?
Yeah.
So
first time I met you was at the Buckmasters Expo when I was getting certified. I came up to you at the expo in Montgomery. Yeah, that was a few years ago.
Yeah, that was might have been almost 3 years ago. Anyway. Yeah. And he scored deer for me and Daniel, and then met him at seen him at some of my other shows, the Mobile Hunter Expo and stuff.
Yep.
But a big hunter and has killed again some whopper bucks, but he mainly hunts mountainous. Right here where we're at in Georgia, this Appalachian chain, the lower part of it is, that's pretty steep stuff.
It is to me. I know there's bigger mountains at other places, but they're big to me.
Right. So what we want to get into is, especially over the last 4 or 5 years, you've been pretty consistent killing some good bucks. So
I've been trying. Yes, sir. Yes.
So what? Give us a good idea, like when you go to area or when you're looking at area on the map, what are you looking for as far as terrain, and how does it key into what you think is associated with you taking these bigger bucks? So.
It all depends on what state I'm hunting. I hunt Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky. But say I'm gonna hunt around here, the first thing I look for is how saddles relate to maybe like what's in the bottom, what's on the other side of the saddle. Like if I'm on top of a mountain and I find a good saddle, I want to find where I like to try to find a saddle that leads to a good food source on the bottom. It could be literally to the bottom of the mountain. Those deer will do that every night if the food source is good enough. So I look for saddles like that where there's something they want to go through that saddle to get through to the other side of the mountain or the ridge, be it a food source or even a bedding area.
So strictly a saddle, that's your main number one.
That's the first thing I look for.
Okay, well how far are you saying that food is away from that saddle?
Some place could be a mile. Some places I look for, like in Kentucky, where the mountains aren't as big as they are here, they're just rolling hills. It might be a half a mile or a quarter of a mile, something like that.
So generally what you're hunting is the deer are coming through the saddle to go through that mountain, so they're bedding on one side of the ridge, like on secondary points.
Yep.
So do you prefer like a north facing side as far as the bedding part, or is that specifically tied into the food? I guess regardless, it don't matter what side they're on.
Yep, yeah, you nailed it. Regardless, I'm just hunting. I try to all my deer that I kill is going from point A to point B, from food to bed or bed to food. Okay. So I really don't look at unless it's real cold. I might try to get on a slope or something that's going to have a lot of sunlight on it for most part of the day or something like that. But when it comes to which saddles I think are best, that don't really come into play for me.
Okay. Now, is there any kind of specific sign that's associated with them saddle, or you're looking for bedding points on the other side of it and then tying the bed for that, or how much encroaching are you doing when you're doing this?
Yeah, sign is good. In the early season, I'll be looking for a lot of sign like rub scrapes, normal stuff like that that's popping up right now, and hunt the freshest sign. But a lot of times what I'm doing is just trying to find saddles and other kind of rut funnels to get prepared for the rut, because I'm a big, I hunt the rut a lot. So, that's where I'm most successful. And so even if it's early season, if I'm hunting in September in Kentucky, I'm looking for rut spots to get ready in November. But what I found is if I'm a big trail camera guy, so if I set cameras up in these saddles that aren't really getting hit by big bucks yet, in the daytime, if you leave the cameras out there, you can see, what kind of big bucks are in the area, because I'm a firm believer that they come and check an area that they're going to be during the rut in early season, whether that be late summer, early fall. I think a good buck that'll be in that saddle come the rut will come through early season at night or some point before the rut.
Yeah, just keep a check on his base area, basically.
Yep.
Or keeping a check on the girls, maybe. So.
Yep.
So, well, how big an area do you think that would be from actually where you think it might bed at, coming through the saddle and to the food that you kind of concentrate on? So you say almost up to a mile from the saddle to the bed or the food. So how much farther how much farther away do you think it would be bedding, or you're hoping they're bedding that way you can catch them coming through the saddle? I mean,
yeah, that's kind of iffy. I think in the early season they're bedding a little bit closer to the food, which that it's hard to. I'm not one of these guys that can pinpoint a bed and know where a buck's bedding at this point. There's a lot of guys that I think can do that in some places like Kansas or Iowa or something, but where they're bedding, I really don't know unless I find a bed that I think's a buck bed. But most of the time I'm kind of just I'm hunting the thickest stuff closest to the food. I'm a big proponent of hunting thick, edges, stuff like that all season, whether they've got pressure on them or not. I just think a big older buck naturally is going to be in those areas at all times, whether he's pressured or not.
All right, so again, on the saddle stuff, you tying that in with the food, and then that saddle stuff is more rut, I'm assuming, associated versus early season. So
it is for me in here, but I have been successful early season in Kentucky by hunting these saddles that I'm trying to get ready for during the rut. I had a 155-inch deer come in on me at 12 yards while I was on the ground. I was sitting there fiddling with my phone because I really wasn't crazy about the saddle I went to, because there just wasn't any sign. And so I was looking at my phone trying to figure out where to go the next day, and he comes down my back trail where I just scouted and comes right up on me and saw me go for my bow, and he stopped, and I turned around and looked, and it was the biggest buck of my life. And the reason I knew he's 155 inches is because a guy I know killed him like a month later during the rut. Wow. So why he was there, I don't know, but that's why I like saddle, because saddles, deer are going to use them. They're just going to use them.
Okay, so when you find a food and you find a saddle associated with that food, what kind of sign specifically are you looking for out climbing right here?
If it's early season, if it's a big fresh scrape, I mean that's a no-brainer to me, because you put a camera on a big fresh scrape early season, you know you're going to pick up what's in that area.
Wow.
Several different types of bucks. A big rub's good and all that, but a lot of times what I have to do is I have to do observation sets. I can't be dialed in, especially bow hunting. I can't be dialed in first try, hardly ever. So I might do an observation hunt. I mean, I'll definitely shoot a deer if he comes close enough, but a lot of times what I find is I have to get closer to where I keep seeing deer, you know, on multiple days. And then when I get into where I've been seeing them, I may find a big scrape or something like that, and then it kind of makes sense. Or, you know, there might be a ditch I didn't know that was there. You know, because when I say looking, I'm looking through binoculars. They might be hundreds of yards. I'm just catching glimpses of them. But then when I get over there in the juice or where they're at, that's where it will kind of make sense. But it usually starts close to a saddle.
Wow. So what would make you pick what side of the saddle? Cause you go. That'd be another thing is the access. You hunting from, I guess, coming up from the bottom to hunt the bottom side of the saddle.
Sometimes. One I'm thinking about in Kentucky, it's a big saddle. Like it's from the moment it starts to drop off to where you keep walking down to the lowest elevation, and then you get to the top of the other side. It's probably 150 yards. I mean, it's a big wide saddle. And they won't always come through the very lowest part of the saddle. Sometimes they'll go uphill of it or even uphill on this side of it. So if you've got a saddle like this, they're going to cross the saddle by what the wind's doing. You know, so if he's wanting to come up this way or, you know, come over the saddle, if the wind's blowing this way, he's gonna be that way, so he can scent check everything to his left of that saddle. You know, so the dip is what he's looking at because the wind's coming this way. So if he's coming over that saddle and the wind's blowing this way, he's going to be on the far left side, catching all that wind and that scent from the saddle. That's what I've noticed, and that's why it takes observation sets, because depending on what the wind's doing and what the deer are doing, they're not going to. You have the best saddle in the world, but they're not always going to cross that lowest part. They cross it in many different places.
So you try to figure out, or when you're easing up to it, you're kind of paying attention because everything else with the mountains, you know, the wind can always be different what you think it is, or even from when you leave the truck.
Yes, sir.
So you ease up toward it, and kind of figure out if the wind is a certain point, so you're going to making a set associated with that wind.
Yep. Yeah, so if I come up to, and I'm looking down the bottom of the saddle and the wind is at my back, say it, because, you know, I don't like to walk with the wind at my back, but like you just said, sometimes the wind doesn't do what it's supposed to do. So if I get to that saddle and the wind's hit me in the back, I'm going on the other side of the saddle to where all that wind is going to hit me over there. And that's probably where the deer is going to want to come through, because that wind is coming to him. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
So he'll hopefully be closer to me.
And some of that will be associated with the thermal without the wind too.
Yep, and that's that's the thing you have to learn about a spot. You know, you could have a crazy north wind, and you get there and it's blowing north, and then say you drop off of you know, the other side of the hill, and you think, oh well, my wind's going to be going down that side. Well, you get down the other side and it's blowing completely south, down the ridge 100 yards. You really have to walk around, throw some fuzz up or milkweed or whatever, and really see what the wind's doing in these areas, because it'll trick you.
So how far of a walk or how far away do you like getting on these associated with roads or houses or whatever? What do you like? I mean, what's your favorite, I guess, distance, or is there any kind of distance to it?
I look for farthest away from the roads. That's just
farthest away.
The deer seem to act like a deer. The further away from the road it is, and
act more like a deer.
Yeah, that's what I think. I just think because they don't see as many people back there. But I think today a lot more people are starting to, you know,
go farther back.
They're starting to, yeah, and you know, a lot of people say, hey, don't hunt saddles because they're over hunted, because everybody talks about them all the time, and I can see where that will come into play, but a lot of times, and I know we're getting off here, but yeah, far from the roads is what I like to do, and that's not always possible, but yeah, I think a lot of people, you know, don't like the saddles now because they do get talked about a lot, and I don't really see a whole lot of sign in the saddles, and I think it's because there's so many spots that they could cross in that saddle. You know, like we just talked about, depending on what the wind's doing.
Because it was a long saddle, like you're talking about, longer ones. So.
They're not always going to come, because if I just set my trail camera up on the lowest part of the saddle, I'm only picking up a scotia what that is. So what I'll do, if there's a saddle I really like and there should be deer moving through, I will set up these cameras. I'll have 4 or 5 in that saddle. So when one, like this camera here, trips, I can see my other camera in view of this camera. Like when it goes off, I can see the deer walk between these 2 cameras. Well, if I didn't have all these cameras set up, I wouldn't catch up half the movement, because they don't, you know, they might still be in bow range. You know, 40 yards, a camera ain't gonna pick that up a lot of times. And
Right.
that's far from for a camera. So if you're really wanting to see what's going on in the saddle, you gotta. I think you gotta pepper it with cameras.
So that's another interesting thing. So you put a lot of cameras on.
I do.
Verifying, trying to verify or help you with your scouting stuff. So
Yes, sir.
do you do that from like leave them during the whole season, then come back and you're not even hunting? You just see what happens during the season, or?
I have done that, but the way I like to do in the rut is I'll check a lot of cameras every day, like literally every day, because I do a lot of stalking and slip hunting. So I might go from one camera to the next or one rut funnel to the next, and I'll check them that way. But before that, like if it's not in the pre-rut or rut, I will just pepper. If I'm trying to find a big buck, like say Kentucky, it's a few hours from here, I'll pepper some cameras just to see if it's worth spending any time in that saddle.
Wow. Well, what other kind of feature you prefer or look for associated with a saddle, as far as terrain feature or habitat change, I guess?
Habitat change for sure, because a lot of these saddles I hunt around here, it's usually going from like mature hardwoods to pine or cedar, rocky type of gnarly terrain, steep to steeper. I really like that, and I think the deer really like that.
Steep to steeper.
Yep, steep to steeper.
Now, when you find an edge like that, how do you set up with the edge, where you can see into the edge or get in the edge, or?
I will get on, because I don't really want to go far into the real thick nasty stuff, because I want to try to keep my scent in presence. I don't want them to know I'm there at all. I will set up to a spot where I think I can kill one on the edge of it. But there are times where I have went in and pushed the envelope, and it works. But there's sometimes I push the envelope and I jump them out of there and I never see them again. So it's kind of a do or die perfect. If I do push in there to the edge, I like to do it on a windy or rainy day where I can slip hunt and be quiet.
Well, now get back to the access a little bit. What's your preferred way of accessing a saddle to hunt?
I'd like to come in from the top, because I think I can tell what the wind's doing a little bit better on top. You get in the bottom of these, off the side of these ridges, sometimes you can, especially if you're coming into like a thermal hub, you can get the wind to swirl. But if it's just a long finger ridge or something like that, I like to come in from the top and then figure out which side of the saddle I need to set up on, and I don't want to get ahead of where you're going here, but a lot of times I don't even hunt the tops of the saddles anymore. So when I come in, access from the top, I can pick by what I think the wind's doing. Say I'm coming in, it's a north finger ridge, and I'm going north, and the wind's coming from my east. I will drop off the west side of this ridge and hunt below, which is downwind of the top of the saddle, because I think what these bucks do, and I've seen them do it many times, once they get a little bit of age on them, they don't want to cross the top of the saddle unless a doe or something brings them over and they're chasing them or trailing them. But what they'll do is they'll cross that saddle and scent check it and just smell what's coming through that saddle and see if they want to go up there or not. So I see a lot more mature bucks off the downwind side of the saddle than I will the very top once they get mature.
Okay, so you're saying they ain't actually coming through the saddle, they're skirting below it on the same side as the saddle with the wind's coming through.
Yep.
They're not coming through the saddle, they're just basically running parallel in the ridge and the saddle and just checking if anything's crossed through it, so you always stay on that side of that.
Yep. Okay. So I had 2 deer, last year that I had pegged pretty good, and I never get a deer pegged or patterned in Alabama, especially in the mountains. And I had 2 of them last year that I saw, I don't know how many times, got video of them, let them walk. And I thought, man, I'm going to come in here this past season, and I'm going to take a couple nice 4-year-olds. Well, most of the season went by, and I never saw the deer. Never saw them. I thought they disappeared, somebody else shot them, whatever. So one day I just got tired of it because I wasn't really seeing much deer, and I dropped off the downwind side of that saddle, started stalk hunting, and I stopped to take a rest, and I could hear this deer coming from a ways off because it was loud. And anyway, I got video of him. You can check him out on YouTube or whatever. But he comes within 11 yards of me, 125-inch 8-point. I ain't seen him all year, and it was the one from last year. So I thought, man, he's been on this side the whole time, and there wasn't really much sign down there. He was feeding on these little bushes, grazing, And so I put a trail camera down there. Well, the other buck that I've been looking for the whole year, he was doing the same thing. Wow. I got him almost weekly on that camera, and I hadn't seen him all year.
Was that associated because you think the browse on the upper part was dried out, and they were just moved down a bit lower, or is it just?
It definitely could be, but what I've been thinking in my head is they know the pressure, and they probably smell me a lot more on top of that saddle than they do the down the side. Because I think once they got that extra year age from 3 to 4, they weren't about that anymore. They didn't want to be anywhere they smelled me or smelled anybody else come through that top of that saddle. So instead, they would just scent check that saddle like 100% of the time. Like I never even got them on that camera at night. The only time after I found them off the side of that saddle that they come through the top was when a doe came and he was right on her tail.
Wow, that's something. So again, I'll go back to the access a little bit, and we kind of, I guess, pushed the envelope on that part. So you're accessing in, so you suspect, all right, they're going to bed on this side of the saddle, food's on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So you're accessing in. I'm assuming you're not going to come through where you think the bedding side is. So you're going to stay up high and then pop over to the bottom?
On whatever side the wind's blowing. So, okay. Yep, so if it's coming out of the east and we got the west slope, I'm going to drop off that west side and let the wind come over the top to me, and hopefully I'm low enough to where he's not going to be in my wind. He's going to still be upwind of me.
Right. That's pretty good. Okay. Now, say early season, do you associate any of that with any kind of food source or acorn trees or anything like that, or most of this stuff is some type of crop?
You say early season?
Yeah, early season.
Yeah, early season. I once the acres start dropping in Kentucky, they seem to really, hammer them. Even if there's soybeans and stuff in the bottom, I have noticed that, and that's not something I'm used to because I don't hunt anywhere in Georgia or Alabama where there's soybeans or cornfields.
Right.
So I have seen them really attack some white oaks when they first start dropping out there. Wow. But here in Alabama or Georgia, I'm hunting a thick edge next to some acres.
Okay. You're saddle hunting, or what kind of setup are you using?
Bow season, it's 100% saddle hunting. I've just got a tethered a Method 2 saddle and a tethered platform, I think it's a Predator or something. So 100% bow hunt out of that because I just think it's easier to climb up any tree and set up better for a bow shot. And but rifle season, I strictly hunt out of a climber or on the ground. I don't use my saddle for a rifle hunt. I never feel I don't know. I know people have told me 100 times how to do it, but I just never can feel solid out of it, from rifle hunting. So that's my setup.
You do any kind of calling or anything?
I do. I like to call to a deer that I can already see, and I want him closer. I've not had much luck blind calling, to where I just rattle and one shows up. But they seem to respond really well in Kentucky compared to here. But I have rattled in some bucks in Kentucky and even here that I can see, and I want to get a better look at.
Grunt calls?
I usually just use my mouth, just because I'm a minimalist. I don't really want to take a bunch of stuff with me. I like to travel light because I walk a bunch of miles if I'm stock hunting. So I like to go lightly.
No kind of sense or anything? Extra stuff? Nothing?
No, because to me, if they can smell the scent, they can smell me. Because I know you can put that stuff in in strategic areas where they should be able to smell it, not you. But I'm just a firm believer in staying out of their keeping the deer out of my wind, and that's all I concentrate on. I keep it simple.
Right. So is there any situation where you're going in, the wind's kind of crazy or swirling or whatever, you say, well, I'm going to hunt anyway, or you just back out, or what?
Yes, and that's the thing. I got a buddy that he's kind of new to hunting, and he listens to the podcast and he's taking in a lot of information. He'll ask me a bunch of questions and stuff, and I tell him to set up for the 90% or the 80%, however you want to look at it, depending on where you hunt. And he's like, what is that? And I said, well, the wind's going to blow the way you want it to blow, like away from where you think the deer's going to come out 80% of the time. I said, set up for that, not the 20%, because like you know, I mean, we hunt these mountains. It's never going to blow perfectly away from where you want it to 100% of the time. Right. So if I got down every time, I'd never be in a tree. But it's going to happen. And I keep telling myself too, you ever throw a piece of milkweed or cotton and watch it go through the woods, it's not going in a straight line.
No.
So even if I think deer is bedded right here and my wind is blowing right there, by the time it gets to him 200 yards down there, wherever he's at, it's probably shifted somewhere else. So I try to use as most common sense as I can, but no, I set up for that 80% rule.
Well,
what about you?
It just depends. I try to do it, but my favorite thing is where the wind is, like I got a corner and the wind's kind of going to where it's coming from.
It's almost goofy. Yeah. That's I think people call that the killing wind, but that's what I tell them. The wind's almost going to be bad for you, but you're going to shoot him before he gets into your wind. That's what I try to do.
And I can see that with a saddle, because the way a deer is, buck's running that saddle for the wind coming over, so you get in there, you're going to have to try to figure out a way where it's good for him and good for you. So that would make it interesting and maybe challenging at times. So
it is. And if you're rifle hunting a saddle, that's a lot easier, because you could shoot him to the other side of the saddle if he decided to come up 100 yards from you. But bow hunting, you're kind of wanting to put him closer. So if the wind's coming this way in your face, well, he's going to travel this side of that saddle, because he is wanting to smell all that's in that saddle as well.
Right.
So that's kind of the way I look at it.
Sweet. All right, when I come in your house down there on your fireplace, you get this big old 140-something inch Alabama buck.
Yep.
Your first big buck.
First big buck.
All right. Tell me the story of how this hunt happened, took place, how you got him, and how it changed your thought process.
Yeah, so it's going to be 25 years ago. This December is when I shot him in Etowah County. I've been hunting for years. Had, killed a few decent little bucks and was happy and loved hunting. But when I got that buck and got my hands on him and just really saw what he was, it changed me. It's like, man, I want to pick up racks like this every time I go hunting, which is it's impossible, but that's what I strive for. But yeah, I hunted. It was on a fella's property, one of my buddies. He's about 4 years older than me, and he kind of got me into hunting. He hunted a lot more than I did, and so I kind of just followed his lead. But he always liked the what was that, monster bucks, where they'd hunt these big old wide open fields with shooting houses. So we built a shooting house, and he always wanted to be in the field and stuff. And I would just go into these thicker areas, these pine thickets and stuff, and I'd see all these scrapes and trails, and I'd jump deer. And I just always heard, you can't kill them in that thick stuff. You just can't shoot. You can't do this, or whatever. So I kind of always stayed in the open hardwoods and open fields myself. And then one year, I started just going in there after them. And I think that year I killed like a little 3-point and a spike, and was just tickled, because I was hunting these new areas where I had to, really get precise with my setup, because it was thicker. You couldn't really shoot far. And so I was kind of going out my own, and man, I set up on the edge of this cutover in a pine thicket, and was late getting up there. It was the coldest day of the year. I think it was in the teens. I was climbing up my climber, and I was probably 4 foot off the ground, and I hear a deer coming, and it was just starting to break day, and I seen him coming through there, and I was like, what is that? Is he standing in a bush? I mean, that's, his rack looked that big to me. And when I shot him, he just disappeared. Didn't hear him, because it was real quiet that morning and frosty. I was like, he's down. And just knowing that he was down and didn't run out of my sight was just I don't know. It's just the best feeling in the world to know you just finally did what you thought was almost like a myth. You always hear about these big deer, and it's like, man, I don't ever see big deer. So it's kind of like seeing Bigfoot for the first time. So when I walked up on him and seen him, it changed me. And like I said, that's 25 years ago, and I just keep getting hotter and hotter for these deer, and getting after them more serious every year. I don't know that there's going to be any quit anytime soon.
That's fantastic. Now you said seeing Bigfoot for the first time. Well, how many times have you seen it?
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. You know, it was different back in the late 90s and early 2000s. You didn't see the deer. You know, even I remember the first deer I ever seen. I was 15 years old and it was a doe. I jumped a doe. And I remember when I first seen her, I was like, these things do exist. They're here. The deer are here, you know. And that kind of started driving me. And then I got this big deer. It was like seeing Bigfoot. But I ain't never seen him.
Now I'm looking at a split G2 buck right here. They come nice and split brow tines too. So
Yep.
kind of tell me the story of that. So,
Yeah, he's actually a top 10 buck for this county, Dade County. I don't know, you know, used to AON and you know
right.
GON. They have a thing where you can score them and turn them in, and I think he was the number 6 when I shot him. I think he's dropped to like number 8 now. But you know, this county don't get very many big deer, and I was lucky enough to find him. It was a permission piece. I got permission to hunt. Never hunted the place. Didn't know what was on it. Ran trail cameras. I found a fence funnel to where I could tell deer was jumping and their hooves was hitting the ground. Put that camera there, and it sat there for about a month with nothing really special on it. And then one day, him and 2 other pretty decent bucks come through around October 15th. And I told my wife, I said, this is a buck that's probably going to have a doe bring him by me before I can kill him. And sure enough, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but the year before, I had him on camera the year before when they let me hunt, and he was on camera as a nice 10-pointer. And I just thought it was a fluke. You know, he came through and chasing a doe November 28th, and then, you know, I never did kill anything on that property. And then came back the next year and put that camera out. He was, the reason I didn't kill him the year before was I was hunting a different state. I was hunting Alabama. So I thought, okay, November 28th is when they're rutting right here. I really didn't know when their rut was because I was new to hunting Georgia. And sure enough, November 28th, he come through that fence funnel. Doe came through it, then a little buck, and then him. And I shot him at 27 yards.
Oh.
Yep. I couldn't get him to stop. I yelled and grunted and tried to do everything to get him to stop, and it finally, I just said, "Hey deer," real loud, and he finally stopped, and I tagged him. Yep.
Hey deer got him, huh?
Yep. But he was chasing the doe on the same exact day 2 years in a row, and I capitalized on it the following year.
Well, what's your biggest buck?
That's that one right there. That's the one. He's right at 144. He's as a 15-inch wide 8-point, or he's almost a 8-point, but he's got a little G4 there that you can count. It's like an inch long. So yep.
Wow. Tell me a story on him.
That was an Alabama deer, a big mountain in Alabama. I saw him on trail cam in August and thought, good grief, I'll never see that deer ever. and for the entire season, I didn't. He kicked my tail. I couldn't find him, and didn't see him again on camera or in my eyes until the day I shot him. So I got him in August. I killed a few nice deer out there that year, and he was my last tag. I think it was the day before, I walked through a saddle, and I didn't check the camera. I had a camera in the saddle. I had a couple cameras in the saddle. I walked right past it, went and hunted that morning, went and scouted around, did some stalk hunting, came back through, and I looked down and I saw some big tracks, like right, and I'm looking at the tracks. You can see, I've got a video of it. You can see me look at the tracks and then look at the camera to see if it's in line with the camera. And I was like, man, I got to check his camera. And sure enough, I checked the camera. He came through with a doe that morning when I was way on up the mountain, and he was there the day before at 9 a.m. So I thought, man, this buck is on this doe. And you know, when I see something like that, I'm not thinking, oh, he's running this doe all over the mountain. There's no telling where he's at. I'm thinking he is right there right now, even though I can't see him. So I just posted up in that saddle. I was like, I'm not moving here until he comes through. I mean, I was planning on sleeping there because I didn't want him to catch my ground scent coming in from the morning. So I sat there for a couple hours, and sure enough, I catch a glimpse of this in this blow down tree really quick. Just looked like a white antler, and sure enough, he pops out. He's running right towards me, and I have my rifle. So I flipped the safety off. I was going to shoot him, Well, he's 15 inches wide, and he was so close to me, it was blurry in my scope.
Wow.
So I flipped safety off. I didn't think it was him because he's so narrow, and I couldn't really tell. Well, then he got about 15 yards from me instead of 8, and I saw the side view of him. I saw those 12-inch G2s, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, that's him!" And so I got him. I got him right in the saddle. But again, he didn't want to come over the top of that saddle, but until a doe brought him through, and that's, you know, I think even that year, that was 21. I think even that year, if I'd have just dropped off the side of that saddle and hunted the downwind side of it, I think I could probably capitalize a lot sooner.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's been great talking to you, and enjoyed all these stories and stuff. It's amazing. So
I appreciate you coming.
If you got one tip about a saddle for anybody that's watching, when you're looking on topo maps or even scouting, what's your key or best tip for it?
Just one tip? Yeah. Man, that's tough. I would say if you find a good saddle that you want to check out, and just from what we're talking about, you think it should be a good one, don't put a camera in the very lowest elevation of that saddle and expect to pick up all the traffic that's coming through there. If it's a good saddle, if it's really good, if it's got good terrain, either bedding or food on each side, pepper that saddle, you know, starting from uphill, come down into the bottom of it, and then go uphill. Maybe four cameras, and spread them out. And I think that's a really good way to see what deer are using a particular saddle.
All right, I got another one. What about best tactic for hunting? Bow hunting. Best setup for a saddle for you bow hunting.
If I'm hunting a saddle now, just from what I've just recently picked up on this from those 2 deer I told you about earlier, about them running the downwind side of it. Unless the sign is just awesome, and I've done a couple observation sits and I'm seeing deer in the top of the saddle and I think I can shoot them, I'll hunt the top saddle. But if not, if any other case, I'm dropping off the downwind side of that saddle. And I'm in the evening, I'm gonna be a little bit closer to their bed, because I think a buck will come out of that bed a little bit close to dark, and if I'm set up too close to the food, I might not get him during daylight hours. So in the evening, I'll try to hunt closer to the bed. In the morning, a little bit closer to the food. But all that trumps the downwind side of the saddle trumps all that. I will hunt the downwind side, and it don't have to be far. You know, find that trail that they're using. It'll be on a side hill. You know, side hill trails are real easy to pick up on because they're wore down. But that's what I would do. I'd hunt the downwind side of the saddle, probably 70 yards, 100 yards off the top.
Sounds like a good tip. Hey, appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you for coming, man. I love talking deer.
Hey, hopefully y'all enjoyed this. Hey, again, this is probably a June video. We're all getting prepared, getting ready to get them flat. So study all this stuff and kind of put that into your game plan, especially if you're hill country hunting, because basically like what I do is, you know, I do got some saddle stuff associated with creek crossings that's, you know, that I really like, you know, and some of that, you know, we don't have the food things like you talk about, some of the field stuff. I don't really hunt Kentucky or anything, but so y'all think about all that and study them saddles, and remember, downwind side of it. All right, tell me the name of your channel, buddy.
Tines and topo lines.
Tines and topo lines.
Yep, so it's 2 things I love to talk about: deer tines and topo lines. You know, topographical features and terrain and the mountains and all things hunting.
Sweet. On the lower side, key, especially during the rut, right? So,
yes, sir.
That's right. Yep. All right, appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching. If you haven't liked, subscribe, please do, and we'll see y'all. I'm getting flat now. Hey, everybody. Thank y'all for watching the videos. Well, again, we appreciate y'all's support. If you haven't liked, please like and subscribe. And you don't care if you haven't got one of our books, check out Amazon and get a book. Also, we got a link on there where you can, on our YouTube channel, where you can go on. We got a little store set up, like if you're interested in any kind of merchandise, shirts and stuff, you can check that out. And we really appreciate anything like that. So, again, we appreciate y'all's support. You know, keep watching. We're going to keep trying to share the outdoors and how we do some things, and try to help everybody that we can enjoy the outdoors. And you know, we do this for just basically because of the environment and the community that's involved and built around hunting. So again, we appreciate y'all. Like, share, and we'll see y'all again.